Roll Tide. And welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds us, don't wait, vaccinate. Hello again, everybody. This is Roger Hoover alongside Cory Reamer. We've got Tom Stipe with us, our engineer for this evening, in for Todd Robbins. Say Roll Tide to Tom Stipe.
Hey, Roll Tide. Roll Tide.
We're glad to have him in the building. We've got the highlighter crew. Even my mom and dad made the trip to
Hey,
Tennessee to be here today. So,
very nice.
Full house here for Crimson Tide.
Got the whole family represented. We wouldn't have fans if it wasn't for our family.
Exactly. So we're certainly fired up about what's coming up this Saturday, the Iron Bowl, Alabama against Auburn. We saw the Crimson Tide get a great Senior Day win as well against the Auburn Tigers, against Chattanooga Mocs. And I've already got Auburn on the brain.
Yes, you do. Hey, you would be in trouble if Coach Saban saw you right now. He'd be telling you you can't focus. You got to focus on the team at hand. No, it's a great win. That was a great performance by this Alabama team who shows up and takes care of business. They get out to a hot start and they looked really good. I was excited to see the way that they really stepped out, on a game that you weren't sure how they were going to be prepared or how they were going to show up, how much focus they were going to have. And it was great to see this offense came out guns a-blazing. It was good to see. And now we got the most important game of the year. Obviously, you can't say that until we get to this point of the season, and here we are.
Here we are. It's Iron Bowl week. The Crimson Tide, again, a good long winning streak rolling in, undefeated in the SEC. We know the Auburn Tigers not necessarily coming into this matchup on a winning streak.
Yeah, they were until this past weekend. Obviously, I think they took like 3 games in a row in the SEC. And unfortunately dropped one this weekend to a good New Mexico State football team. And it was a good win for that team. It was not a fluke. That was a game that they came out and really put it to Auburn. Probably deflated a lot of fans, deflated some of that team, but do not count them to forget about this game coming up, this Iron Bowl. You know it's going to be important to them, and they're going to show up in a big way. It always happens, especially when you got to go on the road and see them there.
If you'd like to join us on the show tonight, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline. The number 877-202 BAMA. That is 877-202-2262. We're going to be with you for the next hour live from Baumhower's Victory Grille here in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Jace McClellan is the running back for Alabama. Play action fake. Milroe going long, looking for Jermaine Burton. He's got him at the 11-yard line. And bangs right for the jugular they went. That is going to be a 56-yard pickup and the first down of the ball game.
Make sure you keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank. It's available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. Roger Hoover, Cory Reamer with you for Crimson Tide Rewind again here at Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills. And Cory, another great start to a ball game by Jalen Milroe. 13 of 16 passing, 197 yards, 3 touchdowns, and again, just keeps consistent, stays healthy.
Yeah, he's done a great job. He's probably one of the most improved players in the country by far, especially the way we saw him starting out this season. Early on, he didn't seem to have the confidence or just wasn't comfortable with the game plan, and it seems like both the offensive coordinator and Jalen Milroe have both kind of figured each other out. They've really kind of got their games together, and he's been playing absolutely phenomenal the last few weeks. Really turned on this in the second half of the season. There we go. We get some volume. He's looked really good, and he's comfortable. He's confident in what he's doing. He's came out, I love the game plan that we had on Saturday, taking some shots deep. Obviously it's one of his favorite things to do. He's been really good at the deep ball all season long, and goes out there and finds Jermaine Burton, one of his favorite. Absolutely, very first play of the game, gets points on the boards pretty quickly, and then just continued. And the goal for this game was to take care of business early so that you can get off and get your helmet off and rest on the sidelines and let some of these other guys get in there and get some reps, and he did exactly that.
He certainly did, because after Jalen Milroe played, we got to see Ty Simpson at quarterback, Dylan Lonergan as well. Ty Simpson, what a run he had right up until the goal line.
Yeah. I saw something where Tyler Booker was doing an interview today, and they asked about that play, and and his response was, "You better be praying for Ty Simpson today at practice." I'm sure Coach Saban had plenty of words for him. It's just one of those, it's a young mistake. He gets excited. I'm sure he probably didn't expect to be taken off for some 70-plus yard touchdowns anytime during this game. And you got to hold on to it. It's one of the most frustrating plays as a fan, and I'm sure it is as a coach. And Ty's probably frustrated with himself that he got a little too overzealous before crossing the goal line. And luckily, the ball was called dead, and they brought it out to the 1.5-yard line, and we ended up punching it in anyways. But it's good that it happens in a game like this where it's obviously in hand, but you got to learn from those mistakes. You got to protect the football, and you can't let those kind of things happen. You know that Ty Simpson got an earful from Coach Saban. If you watch the broadcast, I'm sure you weren't able to, but watching the broadcast, Coach Saban wouldn't even look at Ty Simpson when they were reviewing that play. So it was, it's a mistake that he made, but he's able to learn from it. Didn't cost us anything.
Didn't cost us anything at all as the Crimson Tide again roll to a win against Chattanooga 66-10. And again, Chattanooga, a good FCS opponent. We saw the very next day they received an at-large bid, which is kind of hard to do in the FCS playoffs, but they were able to do that and continue their season. Yeah, they've had a good year. I mean, I think this is the last 3 or 4 years this team's been in the playoffs, and imagine being a freshman quarterback coming in, getting your very first start in Tuscaloosa. It was a tall task for them to overcome. Their other quarterback was ruled out right before the game, I believe, goes in there with a freshman, and now you got to play this Alabama defense in Tuscaloosa in front of all those fans. But they're competitive. They're a good team, and we played them for this same time of the year for my senior year in 2009. The only interception that I ever had in my career, pulled my hamstring returning it, and I almost had to miss the Auburn game because of it. So we've seen them before, and they've always been pretty competitive. Good for them. Excited for them. They get an opportunity to continue to play. And it bolsters Alabama's playoff resume. We've already beaten a playoff team by 56 points. Yes.
I hope they take that into consideration tomorrow night when they're coming out with the rankings. So surely the strength of schedule just moved up a little bit.
You would hope so. Well, it certainly will. Coming up this week, Alabama on the road against rival Auburn. We're going to be talking about that. If you'd like to join us on the show tonight, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
McClellan lined up wide of the quarterback to the left side. Milroe gets the snap, fires a bullet. Touchdown, Alabama. Jermaine Burton at the back line of the end zone.
Good to see that touchdown from Jalen Milroe to Jermaine Burton, part of Alabama's 66-10 win against Chattanooga on Saturday. Our next question is brought to you by Alabama 811 to help prevent injuries, outages, and loss of life. Call 811 or visit al811.com. Before you dig, it is free, it is simple, it's the law. We've talked already, Cory, about the offense from Saturday. How about the defense? Once again, we talk about the offense always getting off to a hot start because you see the points in the scoreboard, but the defense doing its job.
Yeah, they have. That was one of their best performances, I think. Obviously against lesser opponents, but they came out and they really put it together outside of just a couple plays that busted for some big plays that they gave up. Outside of that, they played clean football. Got some guys who we're still trying to get back to full health, but I thought the guys that had opportunities to play really did a phenomenal job. This defense has, just like the offense, I think this team as a whole has evolved into a much better unit, all together collectively since what we saw in the beginning of the season. We saw, a number of big plays that we were giving up early on in the season on the defensive side of the ball, playing a lot of young guys that aren't experienced, and you can tell they've picked up on it very quick. And they're playing really well. The unfortunate part, or I guess it was fortunate, Chris Braswell gets the big hit and gets the targeting call. Luckily for us, it was in the first half, so he doesn't have to sit out for this weekend against Auburn. That's huge. It would just be massive to lose him in a game like this one coming up. So he'll be back out there, but I think he just kind of surprised that freshman quarterback. He didn't know what to do. It was like a deer in the headlights kind of situation, and didn't know what to do, throw it away, try to move, just get out of the way. He just took the hit right on the chin, and I think Braswell was just as surprised as that quarterback was that he was running right down full steam ahead. So, but this defense is playing well. Caleb Downs obviously continues to be the highlight of this defense. As a freshman, played really well. But we've just got a number of guys. Depth has been something that we've had issues with in the past in the secondary. And this year we do not have that problem at all. It's great to see we can move some guys around and they're comfortable putting guys, playing corner, moving into the nickel position, got fresh faces all over the place, and all of them are stepping in and playing extremely well. Christian Story with the interception as well. So it was a good, hopefully, momentum builder going into what's probably going to be a lot tougher of an environment this next weekend, and an offense that knows, an offensive-minded coach that knows how to really give this Alabama defense some fits. So hopefully there's a good week of practice there ready to go, because this is going to be a lot tougher test.
Obviously, he's gotten some playing time due to some injuries, but Jahad Campbell once again led the Crimson Tide in tackles with 10 this past Saturday against Chattanooga. And overall, would you say he's one of the most improved players on this roster from where we started the season to where we are now?
Oh, there is no doubt. I mean, the guy can't get on the field, unless there's been some injuries in place. Unfortunately, that's the only way that he's seen a ton of reps. But I imagine they've got to be finding ways to get him involved with the game plan more and more, especially as Deontay Lawson gets healthy and comes back. He's a guy that is just such a playmaker. Trez Marshall's been kind of a staple out there. He plays extremely well, but Jahad Campbell's the guy that's out there making so many plays. He flies around. He's all over the place, always getting to the football, and he's one of the leaders on this defense. He hustled. I just appreciate the guy because he's got a unique ability where his motor just never stops, and that's, you got to give him a lot of credit for it, but he never gets tired. I never had that ability. I was always gasping for air, but he's always out there just making plays left and right. It's good to see. Hopefully they've always gotten creative. Whenever you got a playmaker like him, as a coaching staff, you just can't leave him on the sideline and not get involved in the game plan. So I imagine they're going to find creative ways to get him out there.
Same could be said, Tresman Marshall.
Yeah, Tresman Marshall's another one. He's been a welcome addition to this defense, the transfer over from Georgia, and he's been that staple at linebacker, and he's the same way. We got a great unit at linebacker. We weren't real sure what it was going to look like at the beginning of the season. A lot of new faces. Deontay Lawson coming in, taking over for the play calling duties. Go down there and watch him at camp, and he's obviously that vocal leader. He's the guy that's really challenging people to hustle on and off the field, doing the little things right. And it's kind of permeated throughout this entire defense, and everybody's taking on his personality, and they're all out there fighting and have all that kind of effort. So he's a leader that you want to have on the field. Now we got to find ways that if we could play 12, it'd be great. 12 or 13 guys at a time would be awesome, because we've just got too many guys that can't be out there for every single play that have been huge contributors for this defense.
This defense keeps getting better and better throughout the season, trying to keep it going coming up this Saturday at Auburn. PNC Bank is pleased to be back this season with the PNC Achievers. All throughout the collegiate year, PNC Bank will salute both academic and athletic excellence through its proud partnership with the Crimson Tide. If you'd like to join us on the show tonight, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Here now, Jace McClellan. He gets the handoff, charges forward, and the tush push. Does he get in? Let's see. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. The tush push.
If you'd like to join us on the show tonight, you can also submit a question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. Cory, Reamer, we talked about that style of play early in the season, kind of wondered, why hasn't Alabama gone to it now? We've seen it not only with Jalen Milroe, but with running backs as well.
I got to give Eli a shout out there with that with that dramatic call, the touchdown there on that one. I guess he's just gotten used to seeing so many of them. We always thought that this was going to be what this identity of this team was. It's going to be in the running game. I mean, this was supposed to be what we all went into this season expecting that to be what drives this offense, especially with the offensive line unit that we had and some bigger guys up front that we thought were going to move the line of scrimmage easily. And you've got 4 running backs that are all explosive, and we've seen them all season. They've all gotten plenty of reps and have looked really good. But it's actually turned into more of Jalen Milroe using his arm than we probably expected it to be. That's been, the difference maker for this team. But the running game looked really good on Saturday, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to continue to do well this upcoming weekend against this Auburn defense. But Roydell Williams, you can't say enough about that guy. He's really come into form here late in the season, making guys miss in the backfield, seeing and making cuts at full speed. And then his vision has just improved dramatically. He's just finding that open space, and he's able to hit it with such speed where the guys can't get there and wrap him up. Early on, it was like they didn't really have that comfort level of believing where the hole was going to be and running to it and letting it open up in front of them. And they get stuffed in the backfield a little bit. And now we've got Jan Miller's coming a long ways. And you've got Jace McClellan, who's always been that stable back for us that continues to just be a bruiser. But there's a lot of guys that have very different running styles out of all four of them, which is fun to see. And it's huge for this offense where you can really mix things up because you put different backs back there. The defense has to game plan completely different for each one of them because they just all have different qualities about them.
And how about Justice Haynes? 2 rushing touchdowns. He ripped off a 33-yard run in this ball game. The future very bright for number 22.
Yeah, it is. And this is the one that everybody's been talking about, how excited they are for the future of this Alabama team to see Justice Haynes. He's obviously the one that the coaching staff talks about a decent amount of. He's the one that's the explosive player. He can make those home run hits. And we saw a little bit of that on Saturday. And you can see why. I mean, he's just got good speed, good burst when he gets that second level. And it's hard for those guys to bring him down because he's not small. That's the thing about it is it's kind of like a Derrick Henry. He's not obviously as big stature-wise, but he's a big-bodied guy that has a lot of speed that when it doesn't look like he's really got that top-end speed, but when he gets in open space, it's pretty tough to bring him down. So the future is bright in that running back room, and hopefully we can hold on to all those guys. The good thing is they're all contributing to this offense and all the success that we're having.
Jason McClellan, Roydale Williams honored on Senior Day, part of a great win for Alabama, 66-10. And you mentioned the running game, seeing a lot of improvement. We talked all offseason about how good this offensive line would be going into the year. How have you seen this line get better and better throughout the season?
Well, it's been kind of offensive line by committee, which is one position group that you really don't want. You kind of want them to settle in early where you've kind of got the same guys that get comfortable with each other, because we've talked about it on the show a ton, that it's one of those groups that it just takes playing next to each other to get comfortable with knowing what the calls and communication. Everything's got to go right. But we've had some guys that haven't come as far as we thought they would. We're trying to find that right combination up front, shifting guys around each week and trying to put guys in different positions. But I tell you, the last 3 weeks, they're able to keep that pocket clean for Jalen Milroe, which was the huge issue early on in the season. I think we were averaging close to like 4 or 5 sacks given up every single game early on in the year.
Against like a 3-man rush.
Yeah, not even having to bring blitzes. I mean, it was easy packages that we just were not picking up the coverages or blitzes or rushes as well as they are now. I mean, it is dramatically improved from where they were at the beginning of this season. And it's good to see. I mean, and you could tell they kind of got a little bit of attitude about them now. They've got some confidence. This whole team does. And I think that's why you see them come out and start as fast as they have the last couple of weeks. And especially in a game like this, they've got a little bit of confidence, a little bit of swagger about them. It starts with the offensive line. I mean, those guys are really what drives the tone of practice all week, and it drives the game. There's nothing that gets a sideline going as exciting as when you see a guy just making pancake blocks or just dominating lines of scrimmage. If you're a football guy, everybody else is watching the skill guys, but on the sidelines, you definitely love seeing I called them the big uglies. Hopefully I didn't offend anybody on Saturday, but seeing those guys playing well and having fun out there it's a huge boost to the team, because they're always the characters too. They're always the ones that bring all the life to the game. They get excited, and so it's good to see.
It certainly is a good Keith Jackson term.
Yeah,
Big Uglies.
the Big Uglies. Is that his?
Yeah.
I don't want to steal anything from Keith Jackson. He's a little bit of a legend, but I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about some of the great personalities, too, on that offensive line. Seth McLaughlin has been counted on kind of as a key leader all throughout the season. And then Tyler Booker, still kind of a relatively young guy, only a sophomore, but he's starting to show his personality a little bit, and we all love what we're seeing out of Jaden Roberts. Yeah,
absolutely. Jaden Roberts is the guy that really has kind of changed the tempo for this team. You can tell he's having a great time out there, and he's been a welcome addition. Tyler Booker was the guy coming in. We knew he was the leader of that position group, even as him being such a young guy. But you look across the board, there's some youth across this offensive line, which is good for us as well. You got to give a lot of credit to Seth McLaughlin, because he's a guy that struggled. He's a good offensive lineman, but obviously the snap inconsistencies were plaguing us early on. A lot of missed snaps, and he finally got comfortable with it, changed his grip up, finding a way where he's, and for a quarterback, that's a comforting feeling when you know where the ball is going to be. Early on, I'm sure for Jalen Milroe, that's tough when you're having to sit there and really hone in on where that snap goes, because it could be high, it could be low. And that's the worst thing you can ask for a quarterback, is to have to really pay attention to that snap, because it takes away from his ability to see what's going on down the field, and every second counts. If you're having to chase the football, even though it did lead to a lot of our big plays early on in the season, it makes Jalen Milroe's life a whole lot easier when it's consistent and right there. And he's really I don't know what he did. I'd love to know how he changed up his grip to make it more consistent, but he's done a phenomenal job.
We've loved seeing it for the Crimson Tide. Want to keep it going coming up this Saturday at Auburn, and that's, of course, after the Thanksgiving holiday. And then on the holiday calendar, you have Christmas coming up. The holidays are here, and Baumhower's Victory Grill is ready to serve you. If you're planning a holiday party, try their legendary party-ready trays, from their fresh buttermilk fried chicken tenders to the homemade chicken salad, and of course, their award-winning chicken wings. Baumhower's legendary fun and legendary food. We'll continue with more on Crimson Tide Rewind next. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Marlon Taylor checks in for Chattanooga on the defensive front. Alabama now with Milroe on the give to Roydell. Nothing up the middle. He kicks it to his left. He'll outrace everybody. He is in for the touchdown. It'll be a 10-yard run for Roydell Williams.
Hey, if you'd like to join us on the show tonight, you can submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. That's brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. And also, people have been calling in on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline. That number 877-202-BAMA. And right now, we'll take our first call tonight on that Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline. We go to Coleman, where Rain Man joins us now. Roll Tide, Rain Man.
Roll Tide, Cory. Hope you're doing well. How are you?
Doing good, Ray, man. Appreciate you calling in.
You bet. Good to talk with you. Two quick questions. First one, based on the great upset on the Plains this weekend, do you think that poses any challenges for the Tide this weekend?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is one of those games that you got to be ready to go for. And the last thing you wanted to see was them get upset against a team like New Mexico State coming into the Iron Bowl. And the good thing is this team still has a lot to continue to play for, especially with Georgia on deck. But the national implications is really what should keep this team pretty focused. So I imagine that they're going to be ready to go. But you got to be ready for anything, and you can take their performance, Auburn's performance last weekend. You got to throw it out the window. You can't think about it because you know that they're going to be a completely different team than what we saw this past weekend when we roll into town next week. This is the biggest game of the year, and we've always seen a lot of highlights come out of games when one team's supposed to beat the other handily, and hopefully that's not the case, but you got to be expecting that and be ready to play.
Certainly do, and of course, even going back to your playing days, that 2009 game, Alabama's roster was far different from Auburn's going into that game. The level of success Alabama had been having all throughout that season, but still, you really had to grind out a victory. It took that great first defensive stand near the end, but also the offensive drive near the end to get that victory. It just shows you how tough a game like this can be. Yeah,
Roy Upchurch, and Greg McElroy hitting Roy Upchurch in the corner of the end zone to win that ball game. So 98-yard drive, I believe, is what it took for us to finally win that ball game. But the good thing for this team is they've kind of been seasoned. This is not a team that has just gone out there and dominated every single game and not been behind at all. I mean, we've had a lot of games this season that they've had to overcome some adversity and figure out ways to win ball games where they are behind. So, hopefully this is something that they've been able to build on and continue to learn from, and it's not something that will phase them if they ever get caught in that situation. Obviously, you hope that this team shows up and gets off to a fast start, puts some points up on the board early, and really forces Auburn to be the one that's playing under pressure. But this team is well built for figuring out how to still stay in ball games or get back into ball games from behind because they've had to do it so many times this season. So, like I said, hopefully that's not the case. We don't want to see that. You don't want to go into Jordan-Hare and have to fight from behind to win ball games. But this team's been well equipped and figured out how to do it a lot this season. So if it is the case, they should be fine.
Let's go back to 2009 for just 1 minute. How stressful was that bus ride trying to get to Jordan-Hare Stadium and a very shortened pregame for you guys?
Yeah, that was a fun one. I'm not sure exactly what happened or who pulled off all the tricks to make sure that the bus couldn't get to the stadium on time, but I just remember sitting in traffic and we had 3 or 4 buses with all the staff and players and everybody that's on there, and I'm on the first one with Coach Saban, and you could just see the steam coming out of his ears sitting at the very front. Couldn't figure out why we were stuck on 85 and couldn't get to the stadium. And we rolled right into it, and it fired everybody up. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, because you didn't have time to think about it. It was one of those things where you kind of get a little bit antsy, probably throws us off a little bit, but we roll out there and go straight to warm-ups. You don't have any time to do your normal pregame routine, which for all of us, maybe not as bad as like baseball players that are superstitious, but we all were. We like to get in the locker room, kind of take our time, get your ankles taped, and kind of ease on out there and get ready for the game. But it was, as soon as we feet hit off the bus, you're running to the locker room, get dressed, and the managers are unpacking everything, trying to make sure we had everything in place, and you're playing football, immediately. So that was a well-timed accident or traffic stop that we had on 85 that caused that. I'm not really sure who was in charge, but that definitely affected us getting started off that game. And then you roll in as well, and Gus Malzahn's over there, and he's calling all kinds of different plays. We had double reverses, double reverse passes. Everything that they could possibly think of that would throw us off, they were throwing at us. And
Hugh Freeze could do that again this Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. We've seen it from him, and we've played Hugh Freeze a number of times, and we know exactly what he brings to the table in his creative play calling. So, you got to be prepared for it. That's one of the things where you've got to just be able to get a guy on the ground, make sure that you tackle him and live to play the next play. You can't allow these big plays to result in touchdowns.
Absolutely cannot. So, again, the Crimson Tide and the Auburn Tigers coming up on Saturday down on the Plains. Crimson Tide Rewind is presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds all Tide fans to stay up to date with all recommended vaccinations. Flu season's here, and COVID-19 continues to affect our community. Don't wait, vaccinate. We'll be hearing from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, when we return. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Boots in the slot left. He'll now creep to the right side. Looks, gets the throw from the quarterback, and dives into the end zone. Touchdown, Robbie Oots, 7 yards.
If you have a taste for winning, Dreamland Barbecue offers the triple threat: dine in, carry out, and catering. Dreamland Barbecue ain't nothing like nowhere. Proud supporter of the Crimson Tide. So now this Saturday, the Alabama Crimson Tide against the Auburn Tigers at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And always on Monday, of course, we have Crimson Tide Rewind live here at Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. But also in Tuscaloosa, it's Coach Saban holding his weekly press conference, getting Auburn week off to the right start. Here is Coach Saban from earlier today in Tuscaloosa.
The Iron Bowl is, one of the great rivalry games in college football. Something that you look forward to as a competitor. It's also something that is a great opportunity to be able to play in. And I don't think that anybody needs to pay attention to, what happened in the past, what happened in the last game, what somebody's record is. Anytime you play in a rivalry game, it's going to be a highly competitive, tough, very physical game, and that's what everybody needs to get ready for. I think, Auburn is, Hugh Freeze has done a fantastic job there, with his team this year. They've played very competitively in all their games. They're 6-5. They've won some games really well, but they do a great job of running the football.
And that was Coach Saban again earlier today in Tuscaloosa with his press conference as he started to talk about this Auburn Tigers team that is 6-5 on the year, 3-4 in SEC play. And again, prior to that loss against New Mexico State, found a little bit of rhythm, getting a win against Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, then Arkansas.
Yeah, they were playing well, especially from what we saw from them early on in the season. They're trying to figure themselves out as a team, and they started out with a 2-quarterback system. You got Robbie Ashford, who was the guy who started a lot for him last year, and then you got the transfer in from Michigan State, who's now taken over as the starting role, and they're really honing in on him just being a 1-quarterback system, and their offense has kind of exploded. You heard a lot of kind of back and forth from Hugh Freeze throughout the season of who's the guy that's going to be responsible for calling the plays. And I think after what they saw from an offensive standpoint a few games in, that they realized that he needs to be involved a little bit more in the game plan and calling plays. And ever since then, up until this past weekend, they were exploding for a lot of points. I can't remember what the final score for that Arkansas game was, but I think they put up like 48 points on offense. 48-10 on offense against an Arkansas team. Even though their record might not show it, they've been competitive in every single ball game. I think this is probably the least competitive they've been when they played Auburn. They gave us all that we could handle when they were in Tuscaloosa. So this is an Auburn team that before this past weekend, everybody was like, man, they're peaking at the right time. They're starting to play well. They're figuring things out. And then they kind of stubbed their toe a little bit last weekend against New Mexico State. But like Coach Saban said, you've got to throw all out the window because this is a talented team. They've got a lot of good players out there. And they'll be ready to play. There's no doubt about it. You can always count on that. And Coach Saban, I'll never forget the first year that we went down to Auburn in 2007. And you don't understand what this rivalry means if you haven't been a part of it. You know, we all grew up around it, got to see it. You go to school, you know, living in Alabama every single Monday after the Iron Bowl. It was like if you were the losing side of things, you did not want to go to school, even to go to elementary school. It didn't matter. You just didn't want to hear it from all your friends that were on the other side. And Coach Saban got to experience that in 2007. And I'll never forget his halftime or his speech after that game in 2007. I can't repeat any of it on air, but he figured out pretty quickly what it means, and he takes it very seriously. And some of these players are young guys; they've never played. And you heard Tyler Booker talking about it. He said something about, you know, what happens when you go down to Jordan-Hare. It's just something changes when you pull into that stadium. And these guys are going to figure it out if they haven't been a part of it. This is a unique game that will have a very hostile environment no matter what just happened this previous weekend.
Alabama's got to get ready to go. We'll continue talking more about that when we return. Fans this season had the opportunity at Bryant-Denny Stadium to purchase a limited edition Alabama Yeti. Great keepsakes. We certainly enjoyed seeing those from our friends at Yeti. Elevate your game day with Yeti. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Bond and Benson wide to the near side, along with Dupree, the tight end. They fake the toss, look wide open. Touchdown, Malik Benson. When they fake the toss, everybody bought it. Next thing you know, Malik's along for a 20-yard touchdown reception.
Time to take a look at the prescription for success. It's presented by Payless Drugs. Payless Drugs, your locally owned family pharmacy with 4 locations here in Birmingham. Payless can hand your prescriptions, over-the-counter solutions, and home delivery. Payless at mynewpharmacy.com. We've been talking about the Iron Bowl coming up this Saturday, and of course, as we mentioned, a tough loss for Auburn last time out against New Mexico State. Kind of take us in their locker room for a moment. What's it like trying to bounce back after such a disappointment? Not saying you've experienced it before, but a lot of people are making the connection a little bit between Alabama and ULM from 2007 to what we're seeing right now in Coach Freeze's first year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are the memories that you don't want to have as a fan or as a player is losing those types of games that everybody expects you to win. So this team's going to bounce back, though. I mean, this is an opportunity for them to, you know, now the pressure is really off. I won't say it's off, but there's less of it. And these guys still are. It's not like they're playing somebody else. They're still going to get an opportunity. They know what is at stake for this Alabama team, an Alabama team that cannot afford to have a loss. If they want to have hopes of continuing to play after the SEC championship game. Obviously, we still have to take care of Georgia for that to happen, but if this becomes a roadblock going into the SEC championship game, you can kiss the playoffs goodbye this year.
Even with a win against Georgia.
Even with a win against Georgia, that team, if you've got 2 losses at that point, is not getting into the playoffs unless something just drastic happens with a lot of teams that are in front of us. You'd need a lot of teams to lose, and we just haven't seen that happen. Usually in college football, about this time of year, you see some of these major upsets really start to unfold, and we've had years where we've needed some losses in front of us to happen for us to get into the playoff, and they did. And so far this season, they just haven't. I mean, it's going to be really tough for this college football playoff committee if things continue to be, you know, if you end up with a Alabama team that wins the SEC championship as 12-1, you've got a Georgia team that loses, it's 12-1, and then you've got Texas and Oregon and Washington, all these teams. Florida State as well, sitting there undefeated, just lost their starting quarterback this past weekend. What do you do with those guys? I mean, there is a lot that they're going to have to figure out of who the 4 teams that are going to earn that spot in that playoff are going to be, but Auburn knows that conversation is going on for this Alabama football team right now, and they can play spoilers. So, I mean, they're sitting there in that locker room, I guarantee it, of like, look, guys, what are we playing for here? We've got a bowl game, but this is now our Super Bowl for this season. sitting at 6-5 now, I believe is what they are. This is what we have left to play for this season, and we got an opportunity to go beat this team and prevent them from being able to go play beyond the SEC championship. And it's a good rally cry, I can tell you that much, because there's a lot of pride in being able to play upset. And like we said earlier, a lot of the highlights and all the dramatic calls that you hear from the Iron Bowl usually come from when teams that are not expected to be even in the ball game somehow find themselves in the fourth quarter, either with the lead or a chance to win the game. So this Alabama team has really got to focus on themselves and make sure they go out there and execute as well as they possibly can. You cannot overlook this team no matter what's happened for them throughout this season, because we've also seen them play extremely well against SEC competition. They've got it in them. This is a team that took Georgia all the way to the fourth quarter. Let's don't forget that. And so they've got the ability to win ball games, especially at home, where they're a lot more difficult than they are when they're on the road.
It's going to be exciting. The Iron Bowl coming up on Saturday. Our radio coverage is going to start at 11:30 a.m., leading you right up to kickoff at 2:30 down on the Plains. Crimson Tide Rewind is presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds Bama fans, don't wait, vaccinate. For more information, visit alabamapublichealth.gov/IMM. We're back for one final segment in just a moment. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. What's on tap next for Bama is brought to you by Yellowhammer Brewing. Hit your stride with a refreshing Yellowhammer beer at Bryant-Denny Stadium and also at stores near you. Again, next up is the Iron Bowl coming up on Saturday. Our radio coverage will start at 11:30 a.m. Central. The kickoff at 2:30 from Jordan-Hare Stadium. The game on the radio network will be presented by Everwood Wood Treated Right. Cory Reamer, we would love to keep seeing the Crimson Tide get off to a good start, play physical from the opening whistle.
Yeah, this is a game that you've got to come out there and find some momentum early on. And you never know what's going to come from. Hopefully the offense can continue to have the performances they've had over the last few weeks where they're able to put some points on the board. I don't think we scored a touchdown on the opening drive until either it was at the Tennessee game or the LSU. It was the first of the season. So and now it might have been. I mean, it was it's late in the season where we've been able to put some points on the board when we received the football first or in the opening drive. And this is a game that you really need it. You got to get some points early. And like we said earlier, you got to change what Auburn's game plan is. Make them have to adjust to where they're the ones that are having the pressure of trying to find a way to get back in that ball game. But then you can't let off the gas pedal because you know that they're gonna find ways to get some scores. It's kind of like LSU when we talked about them earlier. This is a good defense that's gonna get some stops, but you got to be able to prevent this offense from creating big plays. This is going to be a huge game for this defense and special teams. And we saw a little bit of a change this past weekend in special teams in terms of returners. We got Caleb Downs back there returning punts. Kind of had a little David Palmer in him, looking, taking it to the house. First special teams touchdown that we've had this season. A little bit different from 2009 when we had Javier Arenas back there, who I think he had 5, 6, 7 touchdowns from the punt return at that point. So that's going to be huge. We're going to have to get everybody involved.
Look forward to it. Cory, thank you so much for your time with us tonight on Crimson Tide Rewind. We'll talk to you on the pre- and post-game show Saturday.
Looking forward to it, Roger. Appreciate it.
That's Cory Reamer. I'm Roger Hoover. Special thank you to Tom Stipe and, of course, Mike Henderson back at our Learfield studios for bringing you this edition of Crimson Tide Rewind, again presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health. If you missed any portion of tonight's show, you can always catch it on demand on the Alabama Insider Podcast. You can download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget, we will have one edition of Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR coming up tomorrow at 2 o'clock on all of our CTSN social media platforms. And Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show will be coming up this week due to the Thanksgiving holiday on Wednesday night starting at 6:30. Again, for everybody with Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover saying thanks for listening. Roll Tide and beat Auburn.